Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another exciting episode of English Learning Secrets. If this is your first time listening, we're so happy to have you with us today. I'm Sarah, and joining me is the wonderful John. How are you today, John?
I'm doing great, Sarah. And I'm really excited about today's topic because, let's be honest, small talk is something that can be a bit tricky, especially when you're learning a new language. So, I'm really looking forward to discussing how to be good at small talk and, more importantly, how to practice understanding common answers in English easily.
Exactly. And we know this topic is going to help a lot of our listeners. By the end of this episode, you'll have all the tools you need to start conversations with anyone, anywhere, and keep them going without awkward silences. And we'll even dive into why small talk is such a big deal. By the time you're finished listening, you'll feel way more confident when it comes to chatting with anyone, even if you're not sure what to say at first.
That's right. And we promise to give you some real, practical examples of small talk, tips to keep the conversation flowing, and advice on how to respond in natural ways. So make sure you stay with us until the end. Trust me, there's a lot to gain here. But before we dive in, here's a little question for you, our listeners. How do you usually feel when you meet someone new? Are you nervous, or do you find it easy to start chatting? Let us know in the comments below, and feel free to share your experiences.
We'd love to hear from you. But for now, let's jump right into our topic: how to be good at small talk. So, first things first, why is small talk even important?
Great question. Small talk might seem like just random chatter, but it's actually a huge part of building connections with other people. Think about it. Whether you're at a party, in a meeting, or even on the phone with a customer service rep, small talk is how you break the ice. It's how you get to know someone just enough to continue the conversation. It helps you bond with others and establish a friendly atmosphere.
Absolutely, and it's a skill that can make or break social interactions, especially in a new language. Small talk often happens in those first moments when you meet someone. It's an opportunity to show interest in the other person, which makes them more likely to want to continue talking to you. So, what's the best way to keep small talk flowing?
Well, Sarah, one of the best ways to keep the conversation going is to ask questions. But not just any questions. You want to ask open-ended questions. These are questions that can't be answered with just yes or no. For example, instead of asking, "Did you have a good weekend?" you could say, "What did you do over the weekend?" That gives the other person more room to talk and share something interesting.
That's exactly right. Open-ended questions help you build the conversation naturally. And here's a little tip for you. If you're ever stuck in a conversation and don't know what to ask next, you can always go back to a topic the other person mentioned earlier. It shows you're listening, and it keeps the conversation moving forward.
Speaking of which, let's give our listeners an example of how a small talk conversation might go. I'll be the person starting the conversation. And Sarah, you'll play the role of the person I'm talking to. Ready?
Ready, let's do it.
Hey Sarah, how's it going today?
Hey John, it's going pretty well, thanks for asking. How about you? How's your day been?
Pretty good. I've been busy with work, but I'm happy it's finally the weekend. Do you have any plans for the weekend?
Yeah, I'm planning to catch up with some friends. We're going to see a movie. What about you? Anything fun planned?
That sounds fun. I'm just going to relax and maybe go for a walk in the park. It's been a hectic week, so I need to recharge.
That sounds like a good idea. Walking in the park always helps me clear my mind too. Do you go often?
Yeah, I try to go a couple of times a week. It's a great way to get some fresh air and enjoy nature. Do you enjoy outdoor activities?
Definitely. I love hiking. There's something about being out in nature that makes me feel so peaceful. Have you ever been hiking?
I have. I actually went on a short hike last month. It was a beautiful trail with amazing views. I should go again soon.
It sounds a lot of fun. I love hiking too, especially when you get to enjoy the scenery. Maybe we could go on a hike together sometime.
That's a great idea. I'd love that. We should plan it.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
All right, let's break down that conversation. Notice how we kept asking each other questions about our weekends, our plans, and our hobbies. Each question opened the door to a new part of the conversation.
Exactly. And we didn't get too personal or dive into heavy topics, which is also important in small talk. The goal is to keep it light, fun, and easy. The key to good small talk is to show interest in the other person and listen actively. That means really paying attention to what they're saying and asking follow-up questions to keep the conversation going.
Now, let's talk about phrases that are really useful when you're trying to engage in small talk. For example, when someone says, "I'm going to the movies this weekend," you can respond with phrases like, "That sounds fun. What movie are you going to see?" "I love movies. What's your favorite genre?" "That's great. How often do you go to the movies?" These types of responses show that you're interested and give the other person a chance to share more. Being curious about what the other person is saying will naturally keep the conversation going.
Yes, and don't forget that small talk is also a great opportunity to practice active listening. When you actively listen, you can repeat parts of what the other person said to show that you're engaged. For example, if someone says, "I love going hiking," you could respond with, "Oh, hiking. I've heard it's such a great way to relax." This not only shows that you're listening, but also encourages the other person to elaborate on what they're saying.
That's a great point, Sarah. And let's also talk about body language. When you're having a conversation, your body language plays a huge role in how well the conversation flows. Make sure you're facing the person, maintaining eye contact, and using gestures to show you're interested. If you're on the phone or in a virtual meeting, your tone of voice will do the work for you. A warm tone can make all the difference in keeping the conversation friendly and engaging.
Yes, exactly. And it's important to keep the conversation positive. Small talk should be an opportunity to connect, not to complain or talk about serious problems. Keep the energy light and friendly. If you're unsure what to talk about, you can always ask about the weather, sports, or even a recent event.
Now, let's move on to something that many English learners find tricky: understanding responses in small talk. Sometimes people answer questions in ways that don't make it obvious how you should respond. For example, if someone says, "I had a pretty good weekend. I just stayed home and relaxed," you could be unsure what to ask next. Here's a tip. Try asking follow-up questions based on what they said. If they mentioned staying home, you could ask, "What did you do at home? Watch any good movies?" Or if they say, "I went hiking," you could ask, "What trail did you go on?"
That's a great approach. Asking questions based on their response makes you sound like you're really paying attention. It's also a good way to practice understanding common answers in small talk. People often give short answers, and you have to find a way to dig a little deeper without being too direct. That's where curiosity comes in.
Right. And don't forget about nonverbal cues. If someone's smiling while talking about their weekend, it's a great sign that they're enjoying the conversation. You can then respond with something like, "It sounds like you had a great time," or "I can tell you're really excited about that."
Now that we've covered some great strategies, we'd like to hear from you. What are your go-to questions for small talk? Are there any phrases that you find super helpful when you're trying to keep a conversation going? Share them with us in the comments below, and let's learn from each other.
And don't forget to engage with us. Tell us about your experiences with small talk. Have you ever been in a situation where you struggled to keep the conversation going? We'd love to hear your stories, and we might even feature some of them in future episodes.
How to be good at small talk. This is such an essential part of daily life. And being able to have smooth conversations with people, even about simple things, can help you in so many situations.
That's right, Sarah. Small talk is all around us. Whether we're meeting new people, chatting with a colleague, or just talking to a neighbor, knowing how to make small talk is important. And I think what's great is that small talk is really all about practice and understanding some common answers in English, right?
Absolutely. And the best part is, small talk doesn't need to be complicated. It can start with simple questions like, "How are you?" or "What's the weather like?" These are the perfect starters, and once you get the hang of it, you can carry the conversation much more easily.
That's true. But let's be honest. Small talk can be a little awkward, especially if you're not sure how to respond or what to say next. But the more you practice, the more natural it becomes. I think the key is not to overthink it. Just respond to the other person and share something simple about yourself.
Yeah. And speaking of responses, it's important to be familiar with some common answers to small talk questions. For example, if someone asks, "How are you?" In English, you might answer, "I'm good. Thanks." Or you could say, "I'm doing well," or "Not bad. How about you?"
Exactly. And these answers are easy to remember. And they work for almost every situation. The key is not to give too much information unless the conversation naturally moves in that direction. For instance, if someone says, "How are you?" and you answer, "I'm great. Just came back from a long vacation," that can open up more conversation. But if you just say, "I'm fine," that's a simple and appropriate answer as well.
Right. And it's important to remember that small talk is really about the flow of conversation. So when someone asks, "How's the weather?" you could say, "It's sunny today, perfect for a walk." Or, "It's been raining a lot lately." Simple, easy answers help keep the conversation going.
And here's another tip. Ask follow-up questions. Small talk doesn't have to be one-sided. If someone shares something about their day, you can ask a follow-up question to keep the conversation moving. For example, if they say, "I went to a concert last night," you could ask, "Oh, that sounds fun. Who did you see?" This keeps things interesting and shows that you're engaged in the conversation.
Yes. Asking follow-up questions is a great way to keep the conversation flowing. But it's also important to avoid asking too many personal questions, especially in the beginning. Small talk is not the time to ask someone about their financial situation or private life. Keep it light and casual.
That's a great point, Sarah. So, let's practice. I'll start with a simple question and you respond. Let's do this.
All right, I'm ready.
Okay, here goes. Hey, Sarah, how's it going today?
I'm doing well, John. It's a pretty busy day, but I'm feeling good. How about you?
I'm good, thanks for asking. Just finished a nice lunch. By the way, how's the weather where you are? It's been a little chilly here.
Actually, it's been sunny, which is nice. I'm hoping it stays like this for the weekend. What about you? Is it cold or warm where you are?
It's kind of chilly, but not too bad. I might need a jacket if I go outside, but hey, do you have any plans for the weekend? Anything fun?
Yeah, I'm planning to go to the beach if the weather stays nice. How about you? Any plans?
I'm thinking of going to a local park with my friends. Just relaxing and enjoying the outdoors. It's always nice to get some fresh air, right?
Definitely, I agree. It's good to take a break from everything sometimes. So, tell me, John, have you been to that park before?
Yeah, a few times. It's a nice spot to relax and they've got a great cafe there. Have you been?
I've heard of it. Maybe I'll check it out sometime. What do you recommend I try from the cafe?
Oh, you should try their iced coffee and the sandwiches. They're really good. You won't regret it.
Sounds amazing. I'll definitely try it next time. See, that's another great example of small talk. It's just simple questions, easy answers, and a bit of sharing about what you like or have done recently.
Exactly, and it's really about building connections and keeping things light. Even if you don't know someone very well, you can still have a pleasant conversation by sticking to easy topics like the weather, your plans, or hobbies.
Right. And when it comes to responding to people's answers, you don't have to always give a detailed response. For example, if someone says, "I just got a new dog," you could respond with, "That's awesome. What's his name?" Or if someone says, "I'm feeling tired today," you might say, "I hear you. It's been a long week."
And don't forget to smile. Even though you're just chatting about simple things, showing warmth through your expressions can make all the difference. It helps the other person feel more comfortable and encourages them to continue talking.
That's true. And one more tip, it's perfectly okay to have some pauses in the conversation. Sometimes small talk can feel a little slow, but don't worry. Just wait for the other person to respond, and then take your turn to share something new. It's all about keeping a natural rhythm.
Exactly, Sarah. Small talk doesn't have to be perfect. Just keep it friendly, polite, and relaxed. And the more you practice, the better you'll get at it. So, for everyone listening today, Don't be afraid to start conversations and practice these skills.
Yes, practice is key. And remember, small talk isn't just for socializing. It's a great way to improve your fluency in English because it gets you talking, listening, and responding quickly. You're learning real-life language, which is so important.
Exactly, and when you feel confident with small talk, you'll also feel more comfortable in other types of conversations. So, just start small, and soon, you'll be a pro at it.
I completely agree, John. Let's dive into some more practical examples. So, as we mentioned earlier, starting with a simple question like, "How are you?" is great. But what if you're in a situation where you don't know how to begin the conversation? Sometimes just commenting on your surroundings can work wonders.
Before we wrap up, Sarah, I think we should go over a few more small talk tips to really help everyone out. What do you think? For example, if you're at a party or a meeting, you could say something like, "This place looks great. Have you been here before?" Or if you're at the coffee shop, you could ask, "I love the smell of fresh coffee. Do you come here often?"
That's a great point. And it's such a natural way to begin a conversation, especially when you don't want to start with something too personal. Observing your environment and making a comment is a perfect icebreaker. It shows that you're paying attention and can lead to a comfortable conversation.
Right? And when you do comment on something, it's important to keep the tone positive. Small talk should be light and easygoing. So, if you say, "This weather is terrible," it might not get the best response. But if you say, "It's such a nice day outside today, isn't it?" it can spark a positive and more enthusiastic reply.
Yes, positivity is key. And another good tactic for keeping small talk going is finding common ground. For instance, if you're talking about the weather, you might say, "It's been so hot lately. I've been spending a lot of time at the beach. Do you like going to the beach?" Finding something in common makes the conversation more engaging and less like you're just exchanging polite words.
Absolutely. And here's another small talk skill: the art of agreeing and empathizing. People love it when you agree with something they say. For example, if someone says, "I'm really enjoying this book I'm reading," you can respond with, "Oh, I've heard that book is really good. What's it about?" Or you could say, "I totally agree. I love reading too. Do you have any book recommendations?"
Yes, agreeing and showing interest in what the other person is saying is a great way to deepen the conversation. When you show enthusiasm about something they like, it makes them feel heard and understood. This is where you can also practice listening carefully. The more you listen, the better you can keep the conversation going.
Listening is so important, Sarah. It's not just about talking, it's about engaging with the other person. A lot of small talk fails because one person just keeps talking about themselves without letting the other person respond. It's a two-way street, so make sure you're giving the other person space to share too.
Exactly. And it's also really important to be mindful of nonverbal communication. A smile, a nod, or even just maintaining eye contact can make a big difference. You don't have to say a lot, but your body language can show that you're interested and actively listening.
That's a great reminder. You can be a great conversationalist without saying too much. Your actions can speak just as loudly as your words. And when you do speak, it's also helpful to vary your tone and pace. If you speak too quickly or in a monotone voice, the conversation might feel flat. But if you vary your tone, it adds energy to the exchange.
Totally. And one last point I think we should mention. Even if the conversation starts to slow down, don't panic. Small talk doesn't need to be a long, deep conversation. If there's a pause, it's okay. You can just say, "It was nice talking to you," or "I'm sure we'll chat again soon." That's a smooth way to wrap things up without feeling awkward.
I couldn't agree more. It's really all about making the conversation comfortable, pleasant, and casual. And if the conversation doesn't go anywhere, that's fine too. You can always try again next time. Small talk doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be real and friendly.
Exactly. The more you practice, the easier and more natural it will feel. So to everyone listening, don't be afraid to start small talk with people around you. The more you do it, the more confident you'll become.
That's right. And don't forget, small talk is a skill that helps with fluency in English. It's a great way to practice your vocabulary, improve your listening, and get comfortable with conversational English. So, keep practicing.
And remember, it's okay if things don't go perfectly. The goal is to connect with others, learn, and enjoy the conversation. Keep it simple, stay positive, and you'll get better at it every day.
Well said, Sarah. And for everyone who's listening today, we want to encourage you to try making small talk in English as often as you can. Whether you're chatting with a friend, a neighbor, or even someone online, take every opportunity to practice.
And if you're feeling unsure, start with a simple compliment or a question about the weather. It's always a good way to begin.
Exactly. Before we finish up, let's do a quick review of some of the phrases and tips we mentioned today. First off, we talked about some great small talk starters. How are you? What's the weather like today? Have you been to any good places recently? How's your day going? And don't forget to follow up with questions like, what do you like to do in your free time? Have you watched any good movies lately?
And of course, listen actively. Show you're engaged by asking more questions and reacting with things like, that's interesting, or, oh, I've never tried that. Tell me more.
Also, keep the tone light and positive. And if you need to wrap up, it's fine to just say, it was great chatting with you. Let's talk again soon. Before we sign off, let's dive just a bit deeper into a few more examples. Sometimes it can feel challenging when you're talking to someone who's shy or not very responsive. How do you keep the conversation flowing then, Sarah?
Great question. It's all about being patient and asking open-ended questions. Open-ended questions are those that encourage more than just a yes or no answer. For example, instead of asking, did you have a good weekend? You could ask, what did you do over the weekend? This invites the other person to share more about their experiences and gives you something to respond to.
That's such a good point. Open-ended questions are like keys that unlock a conversation. And if the other person still seems a bit shy or reluctant to answer, it's important not to pressure them. Instead, you could say something like, if you don't mind sharing, or only if you're comfortable talking about it. This shows you're respectful of their space and makes it more likely they'll open up eventually.
Exactly. And if you notice someone is giving short answers, you could also offer a little bit of personal information to make them feel more at ease. For example, after asking about their weekend, you could say, I spent mine at a friend's house and had a really relaxing time. How about you? This way, you're not just asking them to share, but also offering a piece of yourself, which can help the conversation feel more balanced and less intimidating.
Yes, sharing personal stories is such a powerful tool in small talk. It builds connection and encourages the other person to feel more comfortable doing the same. And if the conversation seems to hit a pause, don't worry about it. You can always transition to a new topic, like asking about their favorite TV show or how they like to spend their free time. The key is to keep things light and flowing, without forcing it.
Totally. And sometimes, small talk can also be a good opportunity to practice some cultural knowledge. For instance, if you're meeting someone from another country, you might ask, I've always wanted to visit their country. What's the best place to go? It's a wonderful way to learn about other cultures while engaging in a relaxed, friendly conversation.
That's a fantastic tip. It not only makes the conversation more interesting, but also shows that you're genuinely curious about the other person's background. People love talking about things that are important to them. So asking about their hometown or traditions can really get the conversation going.
And let's not forget about body language again. I know we touched on this earlier, but it really can't be overstated. Simple gestures like nodding when they're speaking, making eye contact, or even leaning slightly forward show that you're engaged. And when they ask you a question, take a moment to think before answering. That can make the conversation feel less rushed and more meaningful.
Absolutely. It's all about giving and taking. Small talk is never just about you talking or them talking. It's about creating a shared experience. The more you practice, the more natural it will feel. And hey, even if you feel like you're not doing perfectly, remember that the other person is probably just as eager to connect and learn from you too.
Yes. Small talk can sometimes feel intimidating, especially when we're learning a new language. But the goal is always to connect with others, not to be perfect. And with enough practice, you'll get more comfortable. And your English will improve without you even realizing it. So remember, just take the pressure off yourself and enjoy the process.
That's such an important message, Sarah. When you shift your focus from worrying about speaking perfectly to just enjoying the conversation and learning along the way, you'll notice your confidence grow.
Exactly. And as we mentioned, small talk is a fantastic way to practice your listening skills. Sometimes we're so focused on saying the right thing that we forget to really listen to the other person. But when you actively listen, it makes it easier to respond naturally and keep the conversation going. Plus, it's a great way to learn new words and phrases in context.
Yes, listening is key to picking up on phrases you might not know yet. If you hear someone use a phrase like, "It's been such a hectic week, I'm glad the weekend's here," you can learn how they use words like hectic in context. It's a fun and informal way to expand your vocabulary without memorizing lists of words.
I love that. The more you immerse yourself in real conversations, the more you'll start picking up on these natural expressions. And soon you'll find yourself using them without even thinking twice.
Exactly, and that's how you grow your fluency, by stepping outside your comfort zone and actively using what you're learning. So, to everyone listening, don't be afraid to make mistakes. The more mistakes you make, the more you'll learn from them, and eventually, you'll be a small talk pro.
Yes, mistakes are just stepping stones to improvement. And if you're ever stuck in a conversation, remember, it's totally okay to ask for clarification. You can say, "Sorry, I didn't quite catch that. Could you say it again?" Or, "Could you explain that word?" People will appreciate that you're eager to learn and connect.
That's a great reminder, Sarah. People generally love helping others, especially if you show that you're making an effort to understand and improve. The goal is to stay curious and engaged.
And one final tip. If you ever feel like the conversation is coming to a natural end, try closing with something positive. You could say, "It's been so nice chatting with you." Or, "I've really enjoyed our conversation. Let's talk again soon." This leaves the door open for future conversations and leaves a good impression.
That's a perfect way to close. It's all about leaving the conversation with a positive note, so both people feel good about it. And even if you're not best friends after the chat, you've created a connection and opened the possibility for more exchanges in the future.
Absolutely. So whether you're talking about the weather, a book you've read, or simply asking someone how their day is going, remember, small talk is a skill you can improve with practice. Don't stress over it. Just enjoy the conversations and learn as you go.
Well said. And we hope today's episode helps you feel more confident in your small talk skills. So, go out there and start practicing. Who knows, your next small talk might turn into a great new friendship or opportunity.
That's all for today, folks. We hope this episode has helped you feel more confident when it comes to small talk. Remember, it's all about practicing, listening, and showing genuine interest in others. Keep using those open-ended questions and don't be afraid to make mistakes. The more you practice, the better you'll get.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And if you haven't yet, check out our other episodes for more tips on how to improve your English and your social skills.
Take care, everyone, and we'll see you in the next episode. Stay curious and keep practicing.